Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Mr. Dean Cobalt, and today we are going to be going over prefix multipliers. In a previous lecture, I had gone over what the units are, what the metric units are, grams, meters, things like that. So now we're going to talk about the prefixes that we add to those base units in order to change what the unit is. Depending on what prefix we add to that unit, we are going to change that unit by a factor of 10, 100, 1,000, either by increasing it by 1,000 or by 100 or by some factor of 10, or we're going to decrease it by that same factor, a factor of 10, a factor of 100, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about the prefixes a little bit. So here these are the prefixes that you can add to the beginning of any metric unit. So you can add it to meters, you can add it to seconds, you can add it to grams. Any metric unit you can add these prefixes to, and it will change that unit to a different unit, and it'll change it by whatever factor or multiplier that is associated with that prefix. So let me give you a couple of examples. So if my base unit is meter, then that would mean 1 meter. It's the base. So I'm gonna start with meter, and then whatever prefix I add to that unit, that's going to indicate how much bigger or smaller I have made that unit, or that unit is compared to the base unit. So, for example, if I take deca, so deca is a prefix. If I put deca in front of meter and I create decameter, deca stands for the multiplier of 10 to the 1, or 10. So what I've done is I've taken the base unit and I multiplied it by 10 to make it bigger, and then I called that longer unit, the meter, decameter. I gave it a different name, decameter, right? So here's a picture of what's going on. So here's my original unit, meters, and that's how long a meter is to this scale, right? So then if I want to use a different unit to measure the length, maybe the length is too long to use meters for, right? Meter would be too small. Maybe it's like I got 100,000 miles or whatever. Maybe decameters would probably be too small for that. But I want a larger unit to make the measurement more easier. So instead of meter, I use decameter, and since deca stands for 10 to the 1, or 10, what I've done is now my multiplier says 10, so now I have 10 meters. I've multiplied the base unit by 10 by adding the prefix, and so this new unit that I'm using is 10 times the length or size of the base unit, in this case, meter. So decameter is 10 meters. Deca is 10, right? So I multiplied this by 10. So if I multiply 1 meter by 10, then I get this length here, and that's going to be my decameter. And you'll notice here, DA is the abbreviation for deca, so I used the abbreviation, and M, small m, is the symbol for meter, so DAM is the shorthand abbreviation for decameter. So I have 1 decameter. 1 decameter is 10 base units, 10 meters. Okay, so any of these prefixes here that have exponents or powers of positive values, I'm going to be increasing or multiplying by that number to increase and make my base, or I'm sorry, make my unit longer by multiplying the base that many times. So if I wanted to convert to kilometers, then a kilometer is, you gotta look at the prefix multiplier. So kilo is 1,000 or 10 to the third. So 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, whatever the base unit. If it was kilograms, it would be 1,000 grams. A petameter or petagram would be 10 to 15 grams or 10 to 15 meters. So these are going to be multiplying, making it larger. These, if you notice, they're negative exponents. You're going to be multiplying by these, but you're going to be making the unit smaller. So if you're multiplying by a negative exponent, that's the same as dividing by the positive exponent. So here, if you remember, 10 to the negative 1 is 1 over 10, right? 10 to the negative 2 is 1 over 100. 10 to the negative 3 is 1 over 1,000, and then so on. So, and this is the same as, 1 over 10 to the 1, 1 over 10 to the 2, 1 over 10 to the 3. So, if you remember from math a while ago, if you take this and put it under 1, then you change the sign of the exponent. So 1 over 10 to the 3 is the same as 10 to the negative 3. So, but basically what we're doing is we're dividing the unit instead of multiplying. So, but it's the same as multiplying by the factor with the negative exponent. So when you are using these prefixes here, you are making the base unit smaller by dividing it into smaller pieces. So an example would be if I used decameter. So here now is my meter here. I've made it smaller to fit with this example. So here's my meter now. Here's my meter now. So this is my meter. So it's this big now. And so if I add my prefix deci to make a decimeter, deci means 1/10. You can remember this maybe by remembering that the word decimate means you killed 10% or 1/10 of the population, right? So you decimated. That's what it literally means, but we usually don't think of it in those terms. Decimate means you destroy everything or close to everything, but literally decimate means to destroy or kill off 1/10 of a population. So decimeter is going to be 1/10 of a meter. So you divided up the meter into 10 parts, and 1/10 of that is going to be the decimeter. So I have shrunk my unit down to 1/10 of the base unit. And so that's what the base unit is. So it's smaller, it's 1/10. So I can, whatever my prefix here is, I'm dividing it into that many parts. So if I have a centimeter, then I take my meter and I divide it into 100 equal parts, and one part is going to be the centimeter. So one of those parts is a centimeter. Okay, so with regard to that, so these are the prefixes. These are the multipliers that go with the prefix that tell you what you're going to multiply by to create your new unit. Okay, these are the abbreviations for the unit. So you have capital letters here. Mega is capital M, giga is capital G, kilo is a small k. We said deca was DA. And then you have smaller letters here. Micro here. Micro has a funky letter here. That's the Greek symbol mu. It looks like a U with a long tail at the end. So that's for micro, nano, pico, femto, atto, and so on. So there's a couple ways that you can remember this. One way is that you have a mnemonic device. So you need to know the order of the prefixes so you can remember the prefix multipliers. And I'll talk about this in a moment. So one way you can do this is coming up with some sort of sentence that will help you remember. I got this from the internet. There's others out there. I added a little bit to it to fill out the parts that were missing. It's not going to make complete sense, but it's not supposed to make complete sense. The crazier it is, then the easier it's going to remember. And if you make up your own, then that's probably going to be easier to remember if you make up your own. But here's one that I found. So if you want to remember, you could say every party, the great man King Henry's daughter, Beth, drinks cold milk until 9 p.m. on Friday, or just Friday afternoon, right? Now, again, it doesn't make sense. Friday afternoon, 9 p.m. is way past Friday afternoon, but I chose afternoon because Friday afternoon just kind of flows off the tongue, and it kind of flows with the rest of this. Every party, to make this flow better, you could say at every party, but remember the A for at doesn't apply to anything. So you could say at every party, the great man King Henry's daughter, Beth, drinks cold milk until 9 p.m. Friday afternoon, right? So you can see that the first letter of each word matches with the abbreviation for the prefix. Now, quickly, with regard to the multipliers, one way you can remember the order of the multipliers is to remember that a lot of these differ by a factor of 1,000, or they differ in their exponent by a factor of 3. So with regard to learning the order here, all you need to do is remember this order here, right? Kilo, hecto, deca, base, centi, deci, centi, milli. The base unit is 1, right? So that's in the middle. You have 3 on top, 3 on the bottom. The 3 on top increase by 1. So you go 10 to the 1, 10 to the 2, 10 to the 3, right? Kilos, 10 to the 3. And then the 3 on the bottom decrease by 3, or they become more negative by 1, right? So base 10 to the negative 1, 10 to the negative 2, 10 to the negative 3. Okay, so if you remember that core there, then you can build on that and remember what the prefix multipliers above and below it are by adding 3 to the exponent, by increasing 3 or decreasing by 3 the exponent, or making more negative the exponent. So you can make more positive, so 10 to the third, and then you increase 3 by 3, you get 10 to the 6, and then you increase by 3, you get 10 to the 9, add another 3, you get 12, add another 3, 15, 18, and so on if you wanted to keep going. For the negative, you do the same thing, you add 3, but it's going to be more negative. So with regard to that, you would have, so if you start here, milli, then from milli you would have negative 3 to negative 6, negative 6 to negative 9, negative 9 to negative 12, negative 12 to negative 15, negative 15 to negative 18, and so on. And then you could stop there. And that would be a good way to remember, or an easy way to remember the order. So all you need to do is just remember this core here. So start with whatever your base unit is, meter. And then you got deca, hecto, kilo on the top, deci, centi, milli on the bottom. And then if you remember 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. And then the rest is filled out by either making it more negative by 3 or by factors of 1,000, or making it more positive by adding 3. And then that makes it a lot easier to remember. So I hope this is helpful, and come back for the next lecture. Thank you for joining.